Having a look at that Rowan, it's got a nice healthy waggle in the middle of it. 2/4 split from half a log, about 5.5 inch diameter. We've got a decent bit of length. We've got 81 inches, so I've got a good bit to play with. And this one's a bit sort of skinnier in the middle. There's not quite so much depth of wood here. There's this ridge, I mean that'll just come off. So I might work this one first. Me a bit of string from a string line, and I reckon that's probably about the best place for it. My reasoning being that the angle here, we're sitting fairly flat there, or very slightly sloped that way, and we're similar here. If I move the string line across this way, then we're starting to slope that way a bit. We're fairly central where the grip will be, and we've got reasonable width everywhere. I've decided I'll lop it off here, which will give me a 6 foot length of bow. Well, I'm only 5'10", so that will give us plenty. Now the narrow point, it looks, oh, we're a bit narrow there, but we've got plenty of thickness of timber. See, we've still got 1.5 inches nearly this side of the string line, so I could go 3 inches wide if I wanted. You know, we got plenty of width. So that's notionally my string line. The other thing you'll notice is the string's well above the timber there, so we've actually got some natural reflex, probably just where it's dried. But what I'll do, I'll saw that off. I might just chalk out roughly where I want the bow. I can obviously chop off some of this excess, just very rough. I mean, I'm not gonna take a lot off it, but we're just talking about a very gentle first rough out. Just get rid of some of the bulk. I've run that through the bandsaw, and you can see it's got a reasonable straight line to it now. I've left tons of wood, but just roughing it down like that lets you see where there is a bit less. So you can see the sort of where it's split out. There's not a lot of wood there, but actually put a rule on it, you can see where 40mm, 1 3/4 inches there. Mistake people often make, especially beginners, is they'll start off with half a log and they'll try and cut it out to the shape of a bow. You start off with 1/4 of a log, you then turn it into a stave, then you reduce it a bit more, you start tillering it, and it becomes a bow. You don't try and cut it out straight away to bow dimensions. Or some people probably do, but if you do, you may well find that it starts moving and shrinking and doing all sorts. Right, you can see I've run this limb through the bandsaw again, and I've done my trick of marking out along one edge with a pencil and the same down the other edge. But what you do is you cut at an angle, because if you don't, what happens is you think you're cutting in the same direction as the back, you turn it over and you find you've got no wood at all. So if you cut it angled from each side, so effectively you're removing this corner, then that corner, and you end up with a ridge down the middle that you can remove, and you think, oh, that's beginning to look like the shape of a bow, isn't it? Well, it's not, because you put a ruler on it and you actually find what I've got there is a length of 3B1. So there you go, look, 3 inches and 1 inch thick, and I think we'll all agree that the length of 3B1 is never going to bend in a month of Sundays. In fact, I just put it down on the floor and stood on it, and it did just barely flex. So we're still only just very much reducing it. We're not trying to turn it into a bow yet, but we're slowly getting rid of some of the bulk, the unwanted timber. I'll do the same this limb. Now I'll put the string line down it again. We'll start getting it down to a sensible dimension. I'm thinking probably 2 inches wide at the widest, tapering down to nothing, but I mean I'll taper it down to about 1 inch or 3/4 initially. But yeah, it's starting to get there. That will probably do for me first video. You can see I've left plenty of thickness where the grip will be.